Now, you're a responsible lad, though, Brody, and you did that because you were going to cover a scrimmage on Saturday. Open to the media. We're going to get to the piece that you just put up on The Athletic in a little bit, but what have you thought about your chances to watch Brian Kelly, how he runs a practice, and the differences from the past to now?
Yeah, I think there's something interesting about how everything feels very intentional. And I even mean that down to the detail of letting us see all this, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I think Brian Kelly very much is thinking, all right, I want you guys, in the early stages of us, when fall comes, we're not going to get this access, I don't believe. But now he wants us to see how they do things, how it's different, learn about their processes and stuff like that. I do think that's intentional, which leads to the point of the big takeaway from this last month, and this isn't just me blowing smoke, is that everything very much seems under control. It seems like controlled chaos at all times. It seems like everything has a plan and it's thought out. And, even talking to Brian Kelly in interviews these last few weeks, everything, he has thought through each detail of practice. He makes that schedule himself. He's observing player data, tracking data and figuring out the pace of practice and where they need to, go up or higher, things like that. And, and then he's kind of monitoring to make sure coaches are on the right teaching points and things like that. So I think that's been my main takeaway. You see coaches and assistants just, and this is no disrespect to the last staff, I think there's a lot of great coaches there, but there just seems to be this in-depth teaching that I think a lot of people would tell you wasn't always there last time. So I have been really impressed with just, again, process is the big buzzword, the process stuff of these last few weeks. Am I going to pretend I know how they're going to be on the field? No, but I do come away encouraged with the next few years' trajectory of getting this program kind of in line.
Yeah, it is interesting. I enjoyed what Matt House had to say last week when he was basically saying it's nice to kind of work within a system like this because the expectation is very clear for how we're going to do things, but then you're allowed a little kind of creative wiggle room. It reminded me of how a great director approaches a movie, right? Where they have the ultimate vision, but they're going to let the creatives underneath them in these different disciplines kind of do what they do, and they'll either kind of thumbs up it or thumbs down it. You have an article.
I think that's such a great point, because I think that, and again, try not to drink the Kool-Aid, because I think there are a lot of things that working for Brian Kelly that are very frustrating. He is a tough guy, but at the same time, your point about House, I think, is very real from everyone I've talked to. There is just again, politics background, 30 years of running programs. He just knows communication really well. He knows, all right, guys, this is literally my message, or this is my request or my demand of this coach or whatever. I'm going to be steady about that every day. It's not going to be volatile or change day to day like some past coaches and things like that. This is what I want. If you go do it, go home to your family. You know what I mean? If you do it, you're good. This is the request, and just stick to that, and we're going to get our job done. I think a lot of coaches have been really happy working in that system.
Brody does excellent work covering LSU for The Athletic at Brody A. Miller on Twitter. And, Brody, you have an article that just went up now about this quarterback race. Maybe this quarterback race not as much of a two-man affair as we've kind of been led to believe.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend I know how you framed it, but I know at least myself. I have.
No, I framed that same way. I framed it just basically Jaden or Miles.
Yeah, and I have too, of course. I think a lot of people have. And then, you're at the coach's clinic and you're at different things the last few weeks, and you start talking to more people, and this is Garrett Nussmeier. One coach said he might have been the most steady of anyone this spring. And another coach said, no, man, this is a 3-man race. He's in there. Am I predicting he's going to win it? Am I saying he's the front runner? No, not necessarily. But I think Garrett Nussmeier has looked really good this spring, and hearing that's crucial because the eye test, he's popping a lot during these practices and scrimmages. Like you said, we've gotten a little more access. We've been able to see. He makes throws that just, a lot of other guys can't make. His arm has this just pop to it. It's his passes are just beautiful. And, Miles Brennan's looked really good. I've heard Jaden Daniels has really turned the corner a lot and had some really good practices lately. But I just think it's worth mentioning, in Saturday's scrimmage, Nussmeier had some throws that are just not out of control, but out under pressure on your back foot, just fitting it in between two guys. And the big theme has been working on playing within himself, right? Obviously that was the narrative last year. It's just kind of this raw gunslinger type and all that. And I think he's getting better at that. I think Joe Sloan's been really good for him. But it's also, like, when the story gets into this, there's a lot worth remembering that Garrett Nussmeier, his thing was that he's really smart. I mean, he is like a wise beyond his years kid, son of a quarterback coach, very on top of things. He's not dumb. I think he was just trying to do too much. And I think, he is scaling back. I think there would be a benefit to, if one of those other guys is better, to let him go one more year of development. Of course. I just think it was worth writing to finally say, like, hey, man, he's looked really good this spring, and it's worth watching out.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's you want these position battles to be decided by objective performance. And if that is Garrett Nussmeier, hell yeah, dude. All the power to him. That's a great job by him. We'll continue to monitor that. It's interesting, too, because even Wilson kind of wrote about him, like, a week ago, saying, like, he's this whole idea of him being a gunslinger, he's kind of trying to shake it a little bit. So there's a little juice. There's a little juice there. What about this, Brody? You've watched a lot of spring ball. What is your biggest question mark at this point concerning this LSU team? There's a few of them. There's a lot of them. But, like, what is your biggest one?
I think I'd just go to corner. I think corner is a real red flag right now. Not even just in terms of the players themselves. It's just the lack thereof. I think the real red flag for me was when we noticed Jarek Bernard-Converse is out, which, by the way, is not a huge deal, right? He should be fine in a few weeks, or months, and he'll be there for the season. But it's like when he's out, all of a sudden you look around and you realize, okay, Mekhi Garner's one corner, he has some question marks himself, a good player. Okay, that's fine. But then you're like, wait, who's the other corner? And it's, Demarius McGee or Jordan Tolles moving over there from safety. And you're
Jordan Tolles playing corner now?
Yeah, he's been there for a few weeks now. And it's just all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, it's not about just like, I actually think highly of the transfers they brought in. But if one of them goes down, it's like the O-line last year, for example. And I think that's my biggest question mark because you're not exactly seeing them. I think Greg Brooks is really good. I mean, he's more of a nickel, but he's going to also practice some outside, so he's going to learn both for some versatility. I'm high on Brooks, but I just think that's a huge question mark. And yes, they are looking at other transfers to bring in, whether it's Sevyn Banks from Ohio State or someone else in the coming weeks. But I just think that's my biggest question mark because other people might bring up tight end. And yeah, that's a problem. It's a weak area, but like you can coach around that, right? You can just not go 4 wide more or whatever. Or O-line, I actually have seen some progress. I think they might be stable there, but corner I think is a real issue.
Yeah, so that's maybe the biggest question mark from a negative standpoint, Brody. To me, am I off base in kind of framing Will Campbell asserting himself as the starting left tackle as maybe one of the biggest? Like, it's kind of my biggest story of spring in a lot of ways. Yeah. I mean, when you have Brian Kelly saying that, it kind of clarified the rest of the offensive line picture.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do think it's the biggest story because, one, even to your point, Kelly feeling confident enough to say that. He says, one, he kind of says nothing by accident. 2, he's the same guy who 2 weeks earlier was like, yeah, guys, he looks awesome, but I don't think he's going to be a starter. So, like, he was downplaying, and then 2 weeks later he's like, no. And you talk to people around the program, and they're just like, wow, he might be our best lineman right now. And that's not a diss on the others. He's already physically up to being an SEC tackle. His technique and stuff like that, like even some reps, I've gotten to watch a good amount of one-on-one stuff like that. And like, even when he's like theoretically, and I'm not, I don't actually know offensive line technique, but like, even when he's like technically losing a rep, he's still always keeping like everything. He's not getting beat. He's just maybe getting pushed back a little. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
He's not like falling over and getting embarrassed like on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. I think he really knows what he's doing. And the big victory of that, to your point, isn't just what that does for Will Campbell, which shoot, man. I mean, if he's getting those reps and he's ready as a freshman, that guy should be a superstar. But it's what it opens up across the line. Now you have that place, solidified. Now you feel more comfortable narrowing down right tackle to, some combination of Tam Wire, Doomerville, and Dellinger, or maybe now you have the freedom because you feel better about tackle to make Dellinger a guard or a center, and now you can let Frazier and Shorts focus at guard. I really think that's a huge win for this line just because it lets them focus, if that makes sense.
Excellent work by one of my favorite people ever. And, all my Hold That Podcast stuff is all a bit tongue-in-cheek. You should listen to Chris Branch and Brody Miller's Hold That Podcast. It's great. And you should sign up for The Athletic and follow Brody's work at Brody A. Miller on Twitter.
Should we wait longer should we wait longer for the crossover episode just to build the tension more, or do we need I don't know.
We need
to have like an East Coast West Coast battle first?
I think we need to time it up with some with a big LSU football moment, right? So maybe it's like week 1, maybe the start of camp, like somewhere along those lines. We'll do a crossover.
That's a great idea.
All right, Brody.
Everybody.
Well, wait, dude, have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once yet?
I don't want to talk about it. It's probably all going to be seen this afternoon. It's been a crazy spring and everything going on, but I hope to see it today. I know. I cannot wait.
Yeah, real New Orleans living cinephile, aren't you, Brody? Just living in the Bywater. You're so cool, dude. So cool.
I'm not as cool as I used to be.
Wow, dude. All right, Brody. Well, you have a great day, man. Thanks so much.
Take care.